more opportunities await in the future. First, our first guest is renowned Vietnamese actress Thieu Ngoc Anh, who is now also a film producer here in Vietnam. And our second guest is Othello Khanh, who is a director of French and Vietnamese origin. He has had more than 30 years of experience working here in the country. Hello, you both. Thank you very much for joining us here on our show today. Now, first of all, 12 years ago, you decided to make the film Saigon Eclipse, Othello, and the star actress, of course, was Thieu Ngoc Anh. Can you please tell us about this film? It was the first privately produced film in Vietnam?
Yes, well, we started to produce this film. Well, the film was released 12 years ago, but really the film started, the conception of the film started 20 years ago when I first landed in Vietnam. At first we were only, there was no private companies yet, so the private companies could only work in TV commercials or international services. So I was directing a commercial at Hang Phim Giải Phóng, and we were looking for a cast, and I saw Mr. Thieu Ngoc Anh arriving in a Harlequin costume in a big limousine. I said, wow, who is that young lady? And then we met, and for the 10 years, the 10 years went by, and I was writing the story within those 10 years, only 12 years after that the film was produced.
Yes, it has been 20 years already.
It's been 20 years.
Since first time I met you?
1995.
Wow.
22 years.
2 decades have flown already.
Yeah.
Now, Thieu Ngoc Anh, how did you decide to participate in this film, being, this first privately produced film?
Actually, at that time, it's not a lot of, foreign films or foreign director that had decided to, direct film in Vietnam, right? So, Othello was one of my best friends at that time.
Oh,
yes.
Still.
When he shares about his idea to make Saigon Eclipse, I really fall in love with the character in the film. The character was talking about young, beautiful woman who sacrificed herself for a family and who loves her mom so much. And also, the film was talking about women's rights at that time, in 1975.
Saigon Eclipse is a 2007 Vietnamese film directed by Othello Khanh and starring Dustin Nguyen, Thieu Ngoc Anh, Marjolaine Bowie, and Johnny G. Nguyen. It is based on Nguyen Du's epic poem, The Tale of Kieu. The film chronicles the fate of Kieu, a beautiful young girl who soon after her secret engagement returns home to find her father is about to be imprisoned on trumped-up charges. In a desperate attempt to save the family business from bankruptcy, a trade is proposed. The debt will be forgiven in return for the father's most valuable asset, his daughter. Kieu must now choose between her family and her love, yet she still does not know the true nature of the family business. The film won the Special Jury Award for Drama Feature 2007 at the World Fast Houston International Film Festival and was the official selection of the Shanghai International Film Fest 2007.
For me, it's always important to make stories with a social content, because just to making films, entertainment, well, my background is more about social filmmaking, and so I wanted to make something that would entertain with some social background. And at that point, there were many people who wanted to leave Vietnam. I remember it was Lấy chồng nước ngoài.
Lấy chồng nước ngoài.
Lấy chồng nước ngoài. Yeah, so
This wave of women going abroad in order to get married.
And for me, it was my experience of living in Western Europe, in Northern America, and discovering Vietnam. Really, I would see that Vietnam was really a place where it was happening. Much more interesting, where in the old world everything was slowing down. Here, really, I could understand why people would want to go outside when he was so interesting. So, really, the idea was also to show that people from overseas came to Vietnam or came back to Vietnam, and then meeting people who want to go out of Vietnam, and then the idea was, why do we have to leave when we can build it here?
Exactly.
And that's one of the reasons that international.
Yes.
Come from everywhere.
Yes.
And why was the cast so international, do you think?
Well, the idea is that, people would never had an idea about Vietnam. I wanted to people outside of the world understand better Vietnam. I wanted to make a film where everybody would speak in English.
Yes.
But then the problem is that everybody spoke English with different accents. You had the accent from Singapore, the accent from France, the accent. So at the end, and then for us, us who live here, we are always used to hear different accents and hearing, French, English accent, Vietnamese. But then the audience, when I did some tests, people were saying, well, we don't understand. There are so many different accents. So we took the brave decision to dub it all back to Vietnamese, to make it more for more audiences.
So it must have been very exciting to work with such international viewpoints. Was it for you, kind of working with so many people from different backgrounds, all coming to Vietnam at that point?
Well, this is very interesting, to learn about different people come from different countries. And also it becomes a bit of difficulties when we have to speak English with different accents, as you say. Edwin Chen, is from Singapore, and Mazulin from France, and Dustin and Antonio, of course, their English is very accurate. So, but the conversational in English is easier, but dialogues is a bit difficult. You all have to say in English. So that is one of the difficulties.
Born and raised in Paris, France in 1964, Othello Kang started his career in France in the early 1980s. He became one of France's youngest and most successful TV and commercial directors. In 1995, Othello returned to his roots in Vietnam, where he is the co-founder and the industry-acclaimed creative force behind Korea TV, which has become Vietnam's leading company, setting international standards for its commercial, documentary, and feature film production. Born and raised in Hanoi, Trung Ngoc Yang impressed the audience by her debut role in the TV series You Remember or Not in 1993. And later on The Hard-Earned Money in 1997. She then gained success, starring in several feature films, including The White Silk Dress in 2005. And Saigon Eclipse in 2007. Aside from acting, Trung Ngoc Yang is also a talented model and a member of the Vietnamese Model Association. She now owns a production company where she makes her own films, including Rise, Tracer, Saigon Bodyguard, and 200-Pound Beauty.
What were some of the funny memories? Any funny stories behind the scene that you remember from that time?
At that time, it was still a bit of the beginning, they were still the old technology. So for those who are really young, we used to shoot in film. And then shooting in film had a lot of challenges because the laboratory, you have to put the film into the laboratory, and then in Vietnam the laboratory was still a bit broken, or sometimes they had power cuts, so it was very difficult to process here. So we had to process overseas. So you take the film, you put it in a can. We have to take it to the airport.
Very risky.
And then at the airport, you arrive at the airport, but then you have to put it in the X-ray.
Lots of work.
No, you cannot put in the X-ray. Okay, so if you don't put in the X-ray, we have to open the can. Don't open the can, the film is unprocessed. So it was, so of course the Department of Culture are the one who help us get through the material. Because of course when we shoot on film, nobody knows what's on that film. And then of course there's a concern for people to film things in Vietnam and export it with people don't really knowing what was in that can. So really it was a relationship of trust that we build with the Department of Culture, and then taking out the thing, then you have to go to Thailand to process it. Then after you have to do a telescene, meaning going from film back to tape, bring back the tape here, and then we wanted so you edit with video, and after you had to conform it, and we were the first one to do digital intermediate. And we wanted to do everything in Vietnam. So digital intermediate is what everybody does now. It's just like you shoot digital, you do all the color correction digital, and you edit. But before you had to still go through the film. So we tried to do that in Vietnam. But so Vietnam, they had the equipment in Hanoi, this big machine, very, very expensive, but they just had received it and nobody knew how to use it. So we said, okay, we don't care, we're going to do it anyway, because we are brave, you know. But of course, there was some trouble, so we had to do it again, overseas, and bring it back.
I can see now why the film took 10 years.
No, it took only 2 years to make it, it took 10 years to write it.
Just a joke. For you, Anh, this was one of the first times that you worked, obviously, in a private produced film, and also with a very international cast. Did you find that you learned something as part of, your developing career later on?
Yes, of course. As I say, that we learn from each other. I learned from Dustin, from Johnny, from Marceline. Besides, the shooting, we were sharing about experience how to make film in other countries, with their countries, and it's quite interesting. And very international cruise, right? Very international. So it's a lot of memories and a lot of experience.
Saigon Eclipse was not the only privately produced film released in 2007. That year also marked the launch of two of the most successful films of Vietnam until now. The Rebel by Charlie Nguyen set the record for ticket sales in the country. And The White Silk Dress by Lu Nguyen won the Golden Kite Awards for Best Feature Film at the Vietnam Film Festival 2006. The industry witnessed an influx of new directors, producers, and actors from abroad, including Victor Vu, Kung Oh, Dustin Nguyen, and Charlie Nguyen. Each of them has their own story of coming back.
We want to tell a personal story, a story that has some meaning for me versus just any story. The protagonist, played by Johnny, is about a man who has a Vietnamese heart, but a Western mind. Johnny played this guy who's come back from Paris. He was trained by the French, worked for the French, but he has a Vietnamese heart, so he's conflicted. So he needs to find out who he is. So it's an identity search, and that becomes the concept behind the story. Before The Rebel, I done work in LA, but you don't get to be in the driver's seat. You are telling, other people's story. It's not really your story. And so I feel like, coming back to Vietnam, you have some control over the fact that, if you're really passionate about film and you really want to tell a story, and you want to tell something that is personal to you, or you want to tell a story that you have control over, then here it's easier to get a project off the ground. And I think when we did that, other director, saw that, and they realized that, oh yeah, if he can do it, I can do it too. That's enough. If he can tell his story, I can come back and tell my story.
When I went back to do The Rebel, then I was here for like 6 months. So it was the first time really getting to know Vietnam and working in Vietnam. So of course that was like a very different experience. And the thing is, like, I am Vietnamese American. So when you work in film in your language, in your home language, for Vietnamese people, telling Vietnamese stories, it's more satisfying than being in America. So a lot of people ask me, like, oh, you were living in LA, like, don't you want to work for Hollywood? Even my mom still to this day is always asking me, why don't you work for Hollywood? And it's hard to explain because there's a magic about Vietnam.
For myself, I come from overseas. I grew up in California, but I was born in Saigon. I was born in Vietnam. I grew up with a Vietnamese mom, so my blood and my quê hương is still Vietnamese. So for me, it's very satisfying, and it's very rewarding to be in Vietnam and to do what I love, which is movies, and do it in a country that I would call my first or second home.
The participation of the overseas Vietnamese filmmakers has created a boost for the market, which used to be dominated by Hollywood blockbusters and sometimes Korean and Chinese films. Since 2007, the local film industry appears to have come of age, releasing hit after hit, forcing even the most skeptical of fans to change their mind and sit down and watch.
Do you remember the atmosphere of that year when, so many of these new movies were coming out, the atmosphere of the film industry here in the country?
I think that year is the most, exciting year, because a lot of foreign film and Việt kiều, Vietnamese overseas, coming back and makes film as a Rebel and the White dress, before the Saigon eclipse, right? And few other, very exciting.
Why do you think that was such a important milestone for the film industry when so many people came back? Why was that like a certain point that attracted so many people to come back to make movies?
I think the film industry at that time is booming, and we welcome all talents around the world to come back to develop the industry, and it becomes very exciting and very successful year, and we got a lot of support from the government.
Yeah, because the government did something that they opened to private companies to be able to produce films, and they also made an open call from the Ministry of Culture to the private companies to collaborate with them in order to develop. And so, for example, for the Saigon eclipse, we could have done it by ourselves, but we had a partnership with Hang Film Mode in Hanoi, Mr. Tat Bin, and so to be grateful for the long relationship that we had, we worked together, and we both have our names on the film. At that time, so it was, by the time they allowed it, 2004, 2005, the films were ready in 2006, 2007.
2007, that makes sense.
At that time, there were only 30 screens all around the country. There were 30 screens between the Saigon media then there was a Fast Film, and then it was just the beginning of Megastar, who had one cinema. So there were 30 screens. When today we did the count, and there's about 300 screens.
Wow.
So at that time, so really it was the first time. I mean, it was also a challenge because we were showing our films, but also you had other films like the big blockbusters, American blockbusters that were here.
That's
and
true.
so if you couldn't channel, it was really difficult to, still is a problem, is to be able to stay in the cinemas for long enough.
Yeah.
But now you have, when there were 3 films produced last year with 20 screens, I think this year we have 70 films being produced, and there are 300 screens. So really, it was really the year that was the start for all
for the film industry, for the private film industry.
The Vietnam film industry has never experienced such a booming development. More cinemas are being built. Audiences are flocking to see movies every day. Besides foreign blockbusters, they always have a choice of made in Vietnam films.
Phim Việt Nam hiện nay thì em thấy nó đã chất lượng hơn rất là nhiều. Đã được đầu tư về âm nhạc, về nhạc phim hay là những chi tiết mà có thể gây cười. Em thấy nội dung được đầu tư, sự đầu tư cũng độ công phu nữa, đầu tư với số tiền lớn cũng hay.
When I first came, there was maybe like 4 or 5 domestically produced movies a year, and it's mostly set, right? And then now, just 8 years later, there's like, I think 60 movies. That's crazy.
There's a new movie out every weekend, and some weekend there's 2 or 3 movies open in the same weekend. There's so many that I can't keep track of them.
Sometimes you have to juggle to not be released on the same weekend as your friend's movie. So I have a friend, Danny Doe, who is releasing his action movie the same month as mine, and I had to check and see that there was a little bit of time, like at least 3 or 4 weeks between each film is being released, because I would hate to release the same movie as my friend on the same weekend. It would, you know, it's just not a good feeling to be able to compete with your friend for the audiences here.
Điều hạnh phúc nhất của Thiết là được ở cạnh cha.
Tư nhân sản xuất thì người ta có thể mời đạo diễn, và cái việc mời đạo diễn đấy, dù đạo diễn có tài không, dù là người Việt Nam hay Việt kiều, chúng tôi cũng đều chấp nhận cả, và cuối cùng là như thế thì nó sẽ đạt được cái hiệu quả tốt hơn.
Between now and 2030, Vietnam expects to produce nearly half of the films screened in the domestic cinemas.
Now, do you find that many of the overseas Vietnamese filmmakers and directors and actors who come back, do they have a unique style, or what are some of the strong points that they bring to Vietnamese films?
Being able to be exposed to the Western filmmaking brings us the knowledge and and the techniques. You know, for example, our producer Irene Chin, he is has worked in Canada. She's got the knowledge of, you know, the way you really have to treat the cast, how to, and also the business side, you know, knowing how to knowing about the creative process, you know, knowing about and also all the relationship with all the business side, that is the contracts and, you know, Western distribution. So it really helps bring knowledge to the local industry, to the local people, and share, and also training the people. I know that some actresses like Cathy Nguyen, she also does the workshops where she trains young actors to the techniques. So it's not just about, it's about also having the knowledge and coming in to share with people.
And they have more opportunities to work with film experts, you know, who has more experience, and, you know, and work in big films over there.
If I may flip the story now, what do you think interests the overseas Vietnamese to come back to Vietnam to work in the film industry? We talked about the condition back then, the decree that led to this opportunity that they could work. But what else do you think entices overseas Vietnamese to come back and work alongside the domestic film industry?
Well, it's clearly that they are Vietnamese. They have Vietnamese blood, and also more, you know, opportunities here. How many films that Vietnamese overseas can make over there? I'm talking about make a big film. And the production value in Vietnam is very big. For example, you make a film in Vietnam for 1 million. It looked like 10 million over there. And not a lot of people that have that kind of opportunity to do. So coming back to Vietnam, they're more welcome and more, facilities and the people and everything is, is here. So
yeah,
well, it's true that they're also for actors. Most of the actors, although they're very very good actors, very well trained. As you're saying, how many roles are there for Vietnamese actors?
Yes. Abroad.
Of course, being of mixed cultures is a bit difficult because you're not really I'm French or the guys Americans, but they are in the outside Vietnam. We are not really from where we are, and here we're not really Vietnamese.
More difficult.
So we're more like people from the world, and I guess hopefully it brings a more global vision and attitude that is needed when we are now faced to a global world, and where our next challenge is really to be able to make films in Vietnam to export back to the world. So now our challenge is to be able to retrain outside to come here, but to be able to share back outside of Vietnam to the world about our culture and history here.
Yes, and there are exciting things about the fact that you are Vietnamese, but you're different. So you're welcome here, but at the same time you bring something different. And I believe also, Vietnamese actors and directors of Vietnamese origin can also learn from the domestic industry. Is that right?
Yeah, we all learn from each other, right?
Yes, because here also you have there's always this aspect of guerrilla filmmaking, meaning that you have to, sometimes you don't have as many, you don't have the latest crane, you don't have the latest helicopter, so you have to find ideas, you have to find ways to make things without, so it helps you to develop your creativity.
There are several locally made movies with unprecedented success over the last few years, catering to a growing domestic audience of nearly 50 million moviegoers. In December of 2015, Star Wars 7: The Force Awakens took the world by storm, taking the top earnings in almost every country where it was shown. And that did not include Vietnam, according to The Hollywood Reporter. The leading movie in the nation then was Sweet 20, a remake of South Korea's 2014 hit, Miss Granny. The movie achieved revenue of some 3.6 million USD after 1 month, and in total brought in 4.76 million US dollars. This alone was equal to around 30% of the revenue taken by the top 20 Vietnamese movies in 2013. Director Lê Thang Son's comedy Jailbait grossed an impressive 8.8 million US dollars, breaking another record set earlier by Sweet 20. It's not uncommon now to spot a foreign name in the credit roll of feature films in Vietnam. From director of photography to production designer, editor, composer, a large number of foreigners and overseas Vietnamese are helping improve the quality of each film made. Many of them have gained recognition at national film festivals.
Tell us about, the strategy and the success of some of these directors. What have they done in order to have such successful productions?
First of all, story. First of all, story is still key to success of the film. Of course, skill of the director, of the producer, and the marketing. The time release also key.
Very important.
Yeah, very important. And luck.
True. In any business. For you, I'm kind of going into production and producing your own films. Have you invited international collaboration in your own films?
Yes. We welcome talents around the world to contribute in Vietnamese film industry. For example, in Fraser, we got Tin Nguyen from Australia, actor from Australia, and the action choreography from Australia as well. And the DOP is from US. Go to Saigon Bodyguards. The director from Japan, producer from Canada. Yeah, and some of the actors, is from Sweden, from everywhere. So it's quite international, and we learn from each other.
With its powerful and unspoiled beauty, as well as better production services, Vietnam is a promising destination for international film crews. Foreign film producers are turning up in numbers to explore the potential of this emerging market. Notably, the producers of Kong, Skull Island chose Vietnam to be the set for the Hollywood blockbuster. Othello King's Create TV helped prepare the logistics of filming, including securing all filming permits, locking in all the locations, hiring the local Vietnamese crew to support the 200 or so American film professionals, and of course, setting up offices in Hanoi to supervise and manage the entire production from their main base.
The making of Kong Skull Island in Vietnam gave an opportunity for so many of us to learn about the process of making a film, even if it's not the creative process, but the logistics of it. And I think that Vietnam showed that Vietnam is ready to support a production of that scale.
The devil slid below us.
We talked about how the government and the Department of Culture is quite supportive of the filmmaking. Do those conditions also add to the appeal of making a movie in Vietnam?
Yes. One of the key things, actually. The government, very supportive of foreign film.
Now the Vietnam has been seen over everywhere in the world through the King Kong. People have interest, but it's not sufficient. Yeah. The next step is to be able to attract more films to come to Vietnam. Yeah. And for that we must get on par with other countries. So other countries, they have things like film commissions. So film commissions are independent offices that help people getting the permits and everything. With the production company, we are doing it right now. So we act as a film commission, but we are guilt-based because when people come to us, we don't offer the service of other production companies. So normally, the film commission is supposed to offer the different production houses. Then you have the incentives. So this year I've been to different film markets and location fairs where every country promote their country. So Lithuania, Poland, whatever. Everybody have incentives. So meaning tax incentives, tax rebates, even cash incentive. In China, they have cash incentives for every dollar that you spend in their country. They give you back 25 cents in cash.
That's very
attractive.
Very motivational.
Yes, and this is what it's not. So here we have a good opportunity because we have great locations. People are interested, but people want incentives. We scouted 3 years ago for another Hollywood movie, and they were saying that first we look for a nice location, and so after the location we write the script, but then we need the incentive because they will choose the country on the incentive and what they offer.
That's true, and it all goes back to budget too.
It's not just involved the information and tourism
departments.
Department. It involves finance. Ministry of Finance.
I think it has to be kind of this inter-ministerial
so they have
effort.
Yeah, they have to all sit together and discuss about this.
And of course, Vietnam is not a rich country, so when we talk to the Ministry of Finance, right now they're more interested into getting some money to develop the country rather than spend money and giving money to filmmakers.
But it's like an investment almost.
Yes.
It's investing in the film industry so that the film industry will in turn bring back more money, more tourism to the country, as we saw with the success of Kong.
Yes.
And now obviously people know about Vietnam, and people know about Vietnam not just as a film location, but as a possible destination to come.
Yes.
In the old days, there were lots of stories about Vietnam War, or American War, but those films, they would not dare to come to Vietnam, so they would shoot in Philippines, like Apocalypse Now, Thailand, Malaysia. And now the thing that now we see that the government is open to make films in Vietnam, so we could not only make films that are about Vietnam, but Kong shows that in Kong there are some scenes that shows the old Saigon, but the old Saigon was shot in Hawaii. When Vietnam plays part of this Skull Island that is somewhere, so Vietnam can now not only be offering locations to shoot stories about Vietnam, but also stories that can take place anywhere in the world.
That's true. Yeah. It's becoming a big location like, say, Thailand or Philippines.
I see a lot of good actors. There's so much television series being shot in Vietnam that they are developing talent, more good actors. So now there's not a problem of finding actors who are good, and also crew. In 10 years, the crews in Vietnam have worked so much that now that they're getting better and better.
You can do entire movie here without going to Thailand or India or Hong Kong or back to the U.S. You can do everything here.
I feel like it's a duty for me, and I think it's a duty for some of my colleagues, my friends, to make Vietnamese movies as good as possible so that audiences feel proud to go and watch a Vietnamese movie.
What are some of your hopes and dreams for the film industry in the future, being both obviously still very much involved?
When I came here, when we started, 20 years ago, there was nothing. It was difficult to find a microphone. It was difficult to find a camera. It was difficult to shoot, to edit. Now we have everything. We have developed industry. We are a young industry, and now our hope is that we can be better and to be able to go outside of Vietnam. One of the success, the big success of Vietnam is it's in the industry. It's export. So people manufacture things in Vietnam and then they export them to the outside world, and that's where comes a lot of wealth. And so it should be the same for Vietnam, really, to be able to export our films, and as well as continue to show Vietnam as a great location, and have more international films coming in, being able to co-produce eventually with them, to bring international crews that would learn from each other, to develop, and then by working with the international crews, learn more and more. And through their films that are shown overseas, then it shows more about Vietnam, and then it becomes like a virtuous circle where we become a real international player.
And for you,
yeah, in order to do that, I think that all the production companies, we need to collaborate to make a better film, a quality film, a bigger film for the audience. And we're going to talk about one of the projects after this.
Well, we are very much looking forward to your future releases, more original stories, of course, and more wonderful productions that will not only, take Vietnam to the world, but also bring the world to Vietnam.
Yes.
Okay,
thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
you very much.
And that wraps up this edition of Talk Vietnam with a renowned actress Thieu Ngọc Ánh and director Othello Kang in order to learn more about the film industry here in the country. We thank you for joining us, and we'll we'll see you more next time here on Talk Vietnam. Goodbye for now.